The topic of this week is best and worst rules in Warhammer. And Vince's video, which I'll post down below, in his, for the best rule, he put down pre-measuring, and the worst was the Army Standard, just the effects on the game in general. And you can read why he thought that those were the case in his video. Those are some pretty good choices. I'm the type of gamer that really loves every edition Warhammer. I think every edition has had some good elements that I like, and I don't really focus on the weaknesses that much, or anything that's perceived to be too negative. I like change, but I also can appreciate continuity. But I'm not like so invested in one or the other that I really care that much. So, I love the 8th edition. The transition to Age of Sigmar for me was really easy, though. And so it's really difficult for me to pick something that I would say I really liked or really didn't like. There's been a lot of changes over the years in the game. Speaking on the perspective of my wife, who really liked Magic in previous editions, because it was far more predictable. You knew how many power dice you were going to get. The changes in 8th, I think, were kind of a heavy hit for her. A lot of people love the changes in 8th for Magic, though, I think. I know another friend that the idea of random charge lengths in the game, he just cannot understand that. He hasn't played in many years, but that's just, whenever he watches a battle report now, that's just something that he just, it irritates him. For me, though, it's not that big of a deal. Truthfully, every rule has advantages and things about it that are you could perceive as being a negative. And I think every time you try to correct it, every time they make a rules adjustment, they're trying to correct some sort of balance or something that they perceive as being something that is not good or negative. And you inadvertently almost create others, but by making any type of change or any type of rule. So I'm going to try to answer the topic as best I can with two rules that are really much the exact same. And in 8th edition, one of the things I really loved about 8th edition was it was far more mass combat, right? So you got to get all your attacks with your full complement of troops, regardless of casualties. And in previous editions of Warhammer, you'd have a hero who charge into your ranks. He kills the first rank of guys with all of his attacks because he goes first, and you get nothing back. Because if you take casualties off the first rank, they are unable to be there during your turn, and so you just lose your attacks. It was extremely one-sided. On the other hand, by making it, by allowing the rule where you get the attacks back now, the heroes are not as powerful in close combat. They're not as useful in close combat as they once were. Back in previous editions, heroes were pretty much the game, and the rank of file were just there to be on the board and to kind of move around with the heroes. It was kind of a way to kind of keep your heroes safe, but they didn't really offer much else. And the other new rule in 8th edition, it was essentially like the horde element, where you got to, every, I think, unit got to attack with an extra rank. The horde got to attack with an extra 2 ranks. That was completely new. So not only did you get to attack with your troops regardless of casualties, but you got more attacks. And both of those really made for really epic games. You're rolling a lot more dice, big combats going on. I like the fact that you could take a massive hit, but you don't feel like you're just useless. If a hero in the previous editions ran in and just wiped out your first guys, you're not doing anything. You're just, okay, I'm -8 right off the bat or something. Now you might still lose, but you still get a chance to kind of fight back. Now, those I thought were really good improvements. But the thing is that they also stacked with things like Steadfast, and they almost inadvertently, these positive elements almost became negative elements because the focus of the game just became numbers, and it became a far larger game in terms of the units people were fielding. Um, in White Dwarf, you'd see units of 10 or something, but you might use that in Age of Sigmar now, but in the past that was just kind of a laugh. And you buy a box of 10, so it's like, that's stupid. Why would you ever do that? But I mean, 20 was kind of a fairly minimum most of my games. And obviously, you can go much larger. My zombie horde was 90 zombies, and I used to field skeleton hordes of 50 or 60 fairly regularly. The problem, though, even though I think that makes for a really interesting dynamic, is that the game just became too ludicrously expensive. And it's already expensive as it is, just purely on a small scale. But if you play on a massive scale, you're just not ever going to get a new player into it. If you think of the investment on buying an army for the first time, everyone watching this video has already made that investment, so we're not as, I don't think, as concerned about the cost of playing. I mean, at this point, everything you buy is you don't have to buy it. It's something that you're just adding on. So I think that those rules, as good as much as I like them, they were almost became a negative. So they're like the best rules of 8th, and I think in some ways that are also the worst rules of 8th. And I don't know if GW made those changes possibly to increase sales because the amount of players in fantasy were so small, they were trying to squeeze more money out of it. So we all had to go out and buy, more boxes of the game we already had. And I think the players wanted that system, but it also inadvertently made a game that was small and getting smaller. It probably crushed the game earlier than it did. And so that's where I would say it became a negative, those rules. Not necessarily in the gameplay itself, but just overall. So that's my response for the topic, and have a good one.